and Andy, mics ignite, top and bottom, numbers fly, quick takes roar, their judgment sharp.
All right, we're going to do a quick takes because we're about to start the NBA Finals. By the time you hear this, we'll probably be in the middle of the NBA Finals. And not that I even pay much attention to basketball anymore. I used to pay a lot of attention to basketball. You pay attention to basketball much?
I follow who's doing well and who's doing poorly, but I don't watch any games or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and this year, I'm going to mess it up. I think it's Indiana Pacers
Yes.
are in it
Yep.
versus
Oklahoma City
that's
Thunder.
it, Oklahoma City. So Indiana versus Oklahoma City, and I know the NBA can't be excited about this matchup because there's no big markets. The Knicks lost, and on the other side, there were no big markets,
And there's
in
also
the mix.
no I mean, there's some great all-star players in there,
Yeah.
including the MVP winner this year, but they're not marquee names that like people know off the top of their head, LeBron James type. But they're great teams, and I like it because they're not like super teams where they brought in these players that
Yeah, I do like that too.
they were already superstars when they got there, and now they're just adding that. No, so good for them.
Yeah, they built their teams, and I'm not sure exactly how they built them, but like you said, there's not three big superstars on that team.
No,
It's a little surprising that they're there. It's not disappointing that they're not there like the Lakers and other teams.
yeah, and some of the players were brought in through trades, but they weren't like an all-star or top 10 player, when they got there. They developed there. But speaking of top five players, we're doing our top five players,
Well,
finals players,
yeah, well,
right?
we're putting together a team
Yes.
here. Is that we're saying if we were having an all-time finals team, these are
Yes.
the players we want on that finals team.
Yes.
And no, so with that in mind, with mine, I put a player on there that probably most people wouldn't pick, but I have
Yeah.
my reasoning for this because I think this would be a great team to have.
Yeah, and my starting five are not my top five players of all time, or I think they're the top five of all time, but it's I think top five that'll work well together to win a championship.
So anyway, I'll start with my I guess shooting guard.
All right.
And of course I'm a homer a little bit with this one, but I stand by it that he's one of the greatest players ever and doesn't get the credit for it. And I'm going with Pistol Pete Maravich.
All right. So that's your
Who-
point guard, did the
That's
ball handling and
yes.
passing.
And I choose him because he in college he was phenomenal. He has the NCAA record for most points scored in a season, but even more impressive, he has the career most points scored in college basketball. He only played 3 years. Back then, you could only play 3 years in college. You couldn't play your freshman year. And he averaged 44.5 points a game. And on top of that, he was a shooter, and there was no three-point line back then when he played. So, they're saying that if, he averaged 44.5 points a game, but if there was a three-point line, given where he took his shots, he probably would have averaged closer to 60 points a game. They say 57 points a game in college. Granted, he didn't have as much success in the pros, but a lot of that was from injuries, and it was also from just bad teams, bad chemistry on his teams. I mean, he was on the New Orleans Jazz. They weren't known for really doing anything. And when I'm looking at these players, I'm looking for them at their peak. So I'm not thinking, oh, he was injured a bunch. I'm looking for him to play 5 games, 7 games. So
Yeah.
I want Pistol Pete
Yeah.
at his peak for 7 games healthy.
If you say so. Is your point guard a five-time finals winner and a three-time finals MVP?
Well, no,
Yeah.
because he played on a bad team.
Yeah, that's Magic Johnson.
Oh
He played in a
no.
bad team too. He had to play with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on his team,
Yeah, yeah.
James Worthy. That's
Just like Tim
sarcasm.
Duncan had just like Tim Duncan had to come in and play with the Admiral. But
Yes.
but
So yes. So my
no.
point guard, I chose Magic Johnson. Like I said, he's a five-time finals winner, three-time MVP. But really, I picked him because you can see my team has a lot of scorers. You don't want five players that are just going to score a bunch of points. Got to
Yeah.
get the ball up. So Magic Johnson, he can pass the ball to my next guy, my shooting guard, which is probably your shooting guard as well. So I picked him for that. And look, by the way, in the 80s, the battle was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. I was not a fan of either one. I was a 76ers fan, so I was a huge Dr. J fan. But as you get older, you realize, yes, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were amazing players and better than, Dr. J. But at the time, I hated them both. But now he's on my team.
And I almost put Magic Johnson on here, and I just because he can play all five. He can and has played all five positions in the NBA Finals. Both guards, forwards, and center in the NBA Finals. So he could play all of those positions. I just thought, for the roles that I needed on mine, that he could play everything, but he's probably the greatest just at passing. And Pete Maravich, I just think it was just as good a passer, and even Magic Johnson and a lot of players from that time cite Pete Maravich as their inspiration. Pete changed the game to those fancy passes and seeing the floor so well, and they all looked up to Pete with that. So I'm not arguing Pete versus Magic because Magic, maybe be better on the team than Pete Maravich was. I'm just saying that, yeah, I agree with Magic. Magic is a good choice. He just didn't make my team.
Gotcha.
Now my second guard, which Pete Maravich is a shooting guard too, as I just told you,
Yeah, yeah.
how many points he had, and this other guard also can take the point. If he's taking the point, yeah, he does have a lot of assists, but he can drive right by you, and he's probably most people considered the greatest player ever in the NBA, and that's Michael Jordan. He's a winner. Michael Jordan won the NCAA finals. He won the championship all six times. He was in it and pretty much decidedly those times. He was MVP. Actually, let me pull. I
He was
have
MVP all 6 times.
yes, he's
Because I
MVP
have
for
him
all
too.
six of them.
He's my list too.
League MVP five times.
Yep.
Fourth in steals, and I'll let you talk about him too because you have him as a where you have him. You have him as a You don't have.
I'm
Yeah,
as
yeah,
a
yeah.
guard.
Yeah, him as a guard. My bad. I was looking at the wrong list.
Yeah, I didn't pull up tons of stats, but obviously I think Michael Jordan is the best player of all time. But for the finals, like I said, 6-time winner, 6-time MVP, and he didn't play tons of full seasons with the Bulls, but I thought it was like 11 seasons he played,
Yeah.
and out of those 11 seasons, 6 times, and he took a 2-year gap off during those 3-year run. He had 3-year finals in a row, took it 2 years off, came back, got 3 more finals. So yeah, he was the best player in the team, best player in the NBA all those years.
And he's fourth in steals, fifth in career points, which that tells you, he was a defensive MVP also. He was Defensive Player of the Year once, and he was on the defensive team several times. He was also MVP of the league five times. So with Michael Jordan, you get him on both sides of the ball. He plays defense and he plays offense, where so many players, are just offensive players, or not a whole lot are just defensive players. But Michael Jordan gave you all of that on both sides of the floor, and he was just a winner. He refuses to lose. He picked up his team around him, even though he had Hall of Famers around him. But still, he did bring them to new levels. So that was my other guard, which is same as your other guard.
Yep, Michael Jordan, good pick.
All right, let's get to our centers now. My center was up until recently the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I struggled with this because there's so many centers I wanted to put in there. I'm a big Hakeem Olajuwon fan. I'm a big, Tim Duncan, but he can play forward. He can play center. Shaquille O'Neal. That was my first thought right away. Shaq. But then when I really thought about it and the things that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did, they can't touch him. He was great on defense also. He was a leader in the defensive categories. He's third all time in block shots. He's third in total rebounds. So he's going to give it to you on that side of the floor. He's first in field goals made, second in field goal attempts. He played for a long time. He's actually played more games and more minutes than anybody else. And he's the second all-time leading scorer. Six-time NBA champion, two-time Finals MVP, six-time MVP for the NBA, five-time All-Defensive First Team, and six-time All-Defensive Second Team. So I picked him over the other ones because the way it's rounded out.
Yeah, I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar gets overlooked when they talk about the GOAT thing. They always, the GOAT thing is usually between Jordan and LeBron James. Well,
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has more MVP awards than they do. Like you said, lots of final stuff, lots of stats. It's been a long time, but he was dominant in the 70s, late 70s and early 80s.
With the Bucks, I think he played first and then over to the Lakers.
Yeah, won some, finals MVPs there. So yes, I can't argue with that. And I almost picked him as well. I didn't, just to maybe be different. Also, the guy I picked, you can't argue against either.
No.
And I picked, if I'm going to me now, I picked Bill Russell only because it's before my time. I never really watched him play, but he won 11 NBA finals. He's just a winner. He was 11-1 was his record with the Celtics. It's before they had an MVP award, so you
Sure.
can't say that with him. But yeah, Bill Russell. And back then they had super teams, I guess. Wasn't as many teams back then. The Celtics and Lakers were almost seemed like always in the finals. But Bill Russell, like I said, how do you argue with 11-time champion? But like I said, for center, we could have went with him, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal. We could have went with Wilt Chamberlain. A lot of these
Yeah,
guys
he was
so
just a
dominant.
scorer. I mean, I don't know Wilt's stats, but I think I dismissed him because I didn't think of him. I thought of him as the team, not part of a team. You know, and maybe I'm wrong on that because same thing with Bill Russell. I probably didn't consider him because I just know him by reputation. You know, it's nothing I've ever actually watched, and same thing with Wilt.
And I think like Bill Russell, he doesn't need to be our scorer. He could be the defenser. He could do the rebounding and still have good ball handling. So I think he fits good with his team. Like I said, your team and my team, and anyone does a top five, you can't really argue too much with it, because we're arguing against like generations. But I chose Bill Russell.
Okay, next one of my forwards, and I'm going to save the one that might be controversial to last.
Oh,
So
all
I'm
right.
going to go with an easy one. The one who many believe is the GOAT also is LeBron James. And I do have a little like sour spot for LeBron James. Like I'm not going to say I'm a LeBron James hater, but it seems innate in me to hate him. But when I look at him, actually, all through his career, he is amazing, especially at the height of his career. It seemed like he could take 4 steps and cross the entire court and slam the ball. You know, granted, he didn't dribble the whole time; he travels a lot. But anyway, he was a 4-time NBA MVP. He was Finals MVP 4 times, All Defensive Team selection 6 times. He's led the league in scoring once. You know, he's fourth in career assists, but he's also the leading scorer in NBA history now.
Hmm.
You know, so that shows that, not only does he give the ball up to his teammates, he's a good teammate, but he can also, do it on the scoring end, which I noticed early in his career. It was kind of amazing when he was really young, the passing he did and the way he saw the floor. And rebounds, he's 26th. You know, so he's pretty high up there in all those categories where Jordan, really wasn't in rebounds. He had the steals and, and some of the other categories. So both of them were good on defense. Both of them were really good on offense. And how can I not have a team in my mind with Jordan and LeBron James on it together?
Yeah, that's a definitely a solid pick. And I probably didn't pick him as my forward just because of that. I said I don't think I need Jordan and LeBron on the same court. There's one ball to play. So I went with Larry Bird in this position. Once again, I wasn't a Bird fan growing up, but once again, like I could argue either way. I want Bird kind of passing the ball to
Yeah.
Jordan. Like, people are guarding Jordan and guarding Magic Johnson and Bill Russell. You got to guard Bird too. He's one of the most pure shooters in the NBA who could pass the ball. So you can't double team him in this lineup. So I have him there. He was 3-2 in the finals, 2 finals MVPs, which isn't huge numbers, but they played against the Lakers all the time, in the 80s. When the Lakers won
Yeah.
5, they won, 3, which is still pretty dominant. So yeah, I picked Larry Bird, but obviously LeBron James is a solid pick and he could be the best of all time.
And I like Larry Bird also. I just didn't think he complemented what I was looking for in my team. If I was going to take a shooter, I would have taken Steph. If I needed a shooter that bad, but I think my shooters are good enough shooters to be threats, all of them, except for Kareem's an inside guy. So, and except for my second forward, you ready for that one?
Yeah, let's do it.
My second forward averaged 7.3 points per game in his NBA career.
Whoa,
So,
that's not
yes.
much.
But he also may be considered the greatest defensive player in NBA history because he was very versatile, athletic, relentless in his intensity. I'm talking about Dennis Rodman. And the reason why I picked Dennis Rodman is recently I saw an interview with Tony Kukoc, who played with Jordan and Pippen and Rodman in Chicago. And he was talking about how great a player Rodman was, how smart a player he was. And I told the story of when he first met Rodman when he got onto the Bulls. Rodman talked to him and said, "Listen, between Scotty and Michael, they can score 70 points a game. If we play defense, we're in every game." And that was Rodman's philosophy. He knew his role. He was a role player, and I feel like the rest of my team all these guys can score. They can score, they can pass, and they can play defense. But Rodman's going to be shutting down. He can shut down players from the point guard position to the center, the forwards. He can guard anyone. He's a smaller guy, but he was just incredible with the way he played. He was a unique defender. He's all around, you know, true defender, even though he didn't score a whole lot. His career rebounding average in NBA was 13.1 per game. He finished his career with almost 12,000 rebounds. He led the NBA in rebounds for 7 seasons. And over those 7 seasons, he averaged almost 17 rebounds per game. So and actually once he had 34 rebounds against the Pacers, which I'm
Whoa.
not sure if that was a record or not, but 34 rebounds in one
Yeah,
game. But that's what he did. He played defense and he rebounded.
I cannot argue with that. I was a big fan of the Bulls in the 90s, with Jordan and the whole gang. So
Well,
I
the
liked,
Pistons with Rodman.
yeah, no, I wasn't a fan of them. So I was not a Rodman fan, but I
Yeah.
appreciated what he brought to the Bulls team because, like you said, he didn't need to score and he did his job well. But I went with Tim Duncan just because he is an overall better player, and which also think is underrated. Like you don't hear him discussed much. Uh, but he's a 5-time finals winner, which most of those were he was the star of the team, 3-time MVP. He's a two-way player. He played offense, played defense. He could pass the ball, a lot of things. I think him, even like with Jordan, they say he played with these great players, but I think they made him great players. Like
Yes.
Manu Ginobili, whatever, Manu Ginobili, he was a sixth man. Take away Tim Duncan, he doesn't win anything. Give me a break. I don't think that stinks,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Just maybe like the first few years when the Admiral was still there with him, then that was just like, wow, that's not fair that they have Tim Duncan and David Robinson together. Because David Robinson got hurt, I think the year before, and they managed to get in the first pick and got Tim Duncan. But
yeah,
I think Tim Duncan, reason why he might be overlooked a lot is because of his personality and where he played, and even his coach. He landed with the perfect coach. He and Popovich just think the same. They're low key type of people that are just going to do their job, and that's what Tim Duncan did. He did his job, and I wouldn't have a problem saying that he's top five player ever. I really respected the way that he played and the way he handled himself.
yeah, he's not the kind of guy too that says he's the best. I don't have a problem with LeBron James either. He's an amazing player, probably one of the top three in the history of the world of playing basketball. But like he'll tell you that too. Where
Yeah,
like if you say he's not the GOAT, he'll get
and so
like
will Jordan. So
he'll
will
get it.
Jordan.
But Jordan won't though. I see interviews with Jordan and like they ask him if he's the best, and he'll talk about the guys before him, like Russell and Chamberlain, and says, "How do you compare different generations?" So
Yeah.
he is humble in that regard. I mean, he definitely wants to be the best. But like Tim Duncan, you never hear him saying how
I'm
he's the
thinking
best and should
cocky.
become.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jordan is cocky, where Tim Duncan's not. Tim
Yes.
Duncan always seems so humble. And maybe that's why he didn't stand out. Maybe that's why he didn't get the big advertising campaigns either, because he didn't have that big personality like Shaq.
Yeah, and he's won just as many championships as LeBron James. And he had, I think, the Admiral Robinson the first year he did
Yeah.
it. But like, I mean, LeBron James had some all stars too playing with him. But anyway, Tim Duncan, not a bad lineup.
Well, I like your lineup. So
I
let's
like
look at the.
yours.
I'm just going to go over them once again, and let's see who we think would win. And remember, at their heyday, because Pete Maravich is dead,
Oh
so
boy.
he's not going to, and but anyway, so I got Pete Maravich, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dennis Rodman, and LeBron James, and you got Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, and Tim Duncan. So, how do you think that would work out? It'd be great to watch. Honestly, I think I'd win, but no, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to argue. I think I'd win because I don't think Pete. I mean, who do you want to play in defense? Magic Johnson or Pistol Pete?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all we got for today. With our short takes, looking at the NBA Finals and who our final team would be. So thank y'all for listening.
Thanks.
Yeah, I gotta go. Somebody just rang the doorbell.
Oh, okay.
All right, bye.
All right. Bye.